Hello and good day, welcome to our YouTube channel, God's Promises. And today's video will be the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 10. Let's get started now. The book of 1 Corinthians is an important part of the New Testament, and its 10th chapter contains some valuable lessons that are still relevant today. In this essay, we will examine the story in 1 Corinthians 10 and explore its teachings and applications. The chapter begins with Paul addressing the Corinthians about the Israelites in the Old Testament. He reminds them that the Israelites were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and that they all ate the same spiritual food and drank the same spiritual drink. Despite all of these blessings, however, many of the Israelites fell into sin and were destroyed in the wilderness. Paul uses this as an example to warn the Corinthians against complacency and to urge them to stay faithful. The first lesson we can learn from this story is the danger of idolatry. In 1 Corinthians 10 verse 14, Paul tells the Corinthians to flee from idolatry. He explains that the Israelites fell into idolatry by worshipping the golden calf, and that this led to their downfall. In our own lives, we may not worship idols made of gold, but we can still fall into idolatry by putting other things before God. This can include our careers, our relationships, or even our possessions. We must be vigilant and make sure that we are not putting anything above our relationship with God. The second lesson we can learn from this story is the importance of self-control. In 1 Corinthians 10 verses 5 to 6, Paul says that many of the Israelites were destroyed in the wilderness because of their lack of self-control. They gave in to their desires and indulged in immorality, which led to their downfall. In our own lives, we must exercise self-control in all areas, whether it be in our eating habits, our use of technology, or our relationships. By exercising self-control, we can avoid falling into sin and stay faithful to God. The third lesson we can learn from this story is the importance of perseverance. In 1 Corinthians 10 verse 12, Paul warns the Corinthians to take heed lest they fall. He reminds them that the Israelites who fell in the wilderness were destroyed because of their lack of perseverance. In our own lives, we may face trials and temptations that can cause us to falter. However, if we persevere and remain faithful to God, we can overcome these challenges and emerge stronger than ever before. The fourth and final lesson we can learn from this story is the importance of Christian freedom. In 1 Corinthians 10 verses 23 to 24, Paul explains that all things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. He urges the Corinthians to use their freedom in Christ wisely and to consider the needs of others. In our own lives, we may have freedom to do certain things, but we must always consider how our actions will impact those around us. We must strive to use our freedom in a way that honors God and builds up our fellow believers. In conclusion, the 10th chapter of 1 Corinthians contains several important lessons that are still relevant today. We must avoid idolatry, exercise self-control, persevere through trials, and use our Christian freedom wisely. By applying these teachings to our own lives, we can grow in our faith and become more faithful followers of Christ. Thank you for visiting us today. Please share with us your favorite Bible chapter below in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, it really does help our channel grow. Looking forward to see you back here for our next video. Always take good care.